Hi, besties and bosses. Let me pull this up in the group and make sure I can see y'all. So I'm a few minutes late. They were doing the jackhammer drill outside my window, so I thought I would spare you all the noise and just give it a few minutes. And it stopped, so it worked out in our favor. I am cracking up because I'm pulling this up and I can see my past videos. And I joked about this on Instagram. I think I have more black sweaters and tops than anyone except for Wednesday Addams. My whole closet is basically full of black, dark blue, and gray attire. I'm so digressing, and we'll dive into our conversation because it's actually an important one today. But one of my mastermind sisters and friends had a party out here where it was like one of those parties where you wear all white. We're in New York City. And she invited me, and I remember texting her. I was like, I don't know if I can come because I don't know that I have anything that is a dress that's appropriate that isn't black because my whole closet is black. Anyway, that's what we're talking about today. All right, we've actually got important conversations for us today. We're gonna talk about the biggest mistake I made the first year that I made more than 250K, which was back in 2022, and I actually made 365K or 66K that year. And we're gonna talk about what it cost me. This is a conversation we've probably had snippets of in this group before, but I feel like it is such a big one and such an important one. I, in particular, this year, I feel like if you caught my conversation with Jason Moss, was talking about scaling smarter, not harder, so you can pay yourself more without working more. I feel like I've always been on a mission for this. We did a masterclass last year around this. I really feel like there's such it's like the dark secret in our online space. So many people who are chasing top line revenue and then who are still barely able to pay themselves enough. And, I don't say this as a way to brag, but I often think about this with my one-on-one model. We make great money, but I don't make as much as many $1 million plus companies in terms of top line revenue, but we are more sustainable, more profitable, and I pay myself more than a lot of them. And it's because of the conversation we're gonna have today and just being really mindful of and understanding what it means to scale smarter, not harder. So we're gonna dive into that today. Next week on our live stream, if you join me live, I'm gonna be talking about profitability, and I'm actually going to share an opt-in free, meaning you don't have to sign up for it. I'm just gonna give you access to my profit planning worksheet to help you track your profitability in your business, but also look at how you can increase your profitability. This is something I give to my one-on-one clients, but I'm setting it up so that I can share with you. Again, no opt-in for that. We're gonna have a conversation around that. So that'll be I believe that's next week. And you do have to join here to get the link, but you don't have to sign up for anything around that. I really want to make sure we're having more conversations around this. I feel like I've always talked about this, but I want to be a resource, an asset, a voice for that in our industry so that we are talking about scaling smarter, not harder. And whatever scaling means to you, right? Whether you're looking to make your first 6 figures or your first 7 figures, what I really want to help you to see is that there is a way to do that where we don't have to hustle harder and harder, and where you can do that in a way where if you're being really smart and you can actually slow down and doing less better and really understand what drives profitability in your business as opposed to chasing that top line revenue, which really, let's be honest, we chase that because of ego, fear, feeling like we have to talk about money online, right? If we can understand what we actually want to chase in business can feel, gosh, so much more peaceful, so much easier. I wrote a post about this on Instagram today. Just like so much more peaceful, more joyful. But again, you'll just be able to pay yourself more, and I want to help give you the tools for that. Okay, let's dive in. And if any of you are listening to this, you're like, I want support with that. That's how I want to grow my business. I do have one-on-one spot opening up in February, so I'll drop a link for a free coaching consultation. And we should have one strategy intensive we can make available as well. Okay, so let's talk about this. So again, context here, and I think what's important to understand is the first year I made more than 250K in business. And the reason I say more than 250K in business, I've probably shared this before, and I have a masterclass coming in February as well. We're going to dive into the simple strategy for scaling a lot more. But something I really look at with my clients and that I think about is, yes, I want you to make 6 figures. For some of my clients, making 6 figures makes sense, and they have very, very simple business models and they can be profitable. But really, for most of my clients, what we're looking at is scaling to at least 250K per year so that they are able to pay themselves 6 figures or more. Again, for all of my clients, this is not necessarily, does make sense given their life. Like I have clients who are mamas and have very simple therapy practices, for example, and so having a 6-figure business actually allows them to pay themselves close to 6 figures. But for a lot of businesses and for a lot of business models, what I find, this is not like the exact number, but I find for most of us, Once we start making about 20,000 or more per month, which is about 250K per year, once we're kind of in that 225, 250K per year place, usually if you have a business that requires coaching support, which most of us have if we're at that level to make and sustain that, if you have team support, whether that's a VA or an OBM and a VA, or depending on the size of your team. And if for some of you, I know a lot of my clients, I've started using a little bit of ads, but certain models will require more ad spend than others. So if you're spending some money in ads, but just in terms of your business expenses, right? We all know that to make whatever we make in revenue is not what we take home as business owners. So I find for most businesses, once you're making about, I'd say 15K to 20K per month, that's usually when you're in that nice sweet spot where you can cover your expenses, you can cover your taxes. If you're in New York City or California, you probably have more of those taxes, and you can pay yourself 6 figures or more. I personally pay myself multi-6 figures every year in my business. I have for, I did this year as well, that we're going to talk about here. I have for, I guess, what is that, 3 years now, 2 years, I don't even know. I have for a couple, no, more than that. I did that the year before. So anyway, it doesn't matter. I have for a little while now. But again, I think being able to pay yourself at least 6 figures is the goal for most people and their businesses. Again, everyone's goals are different, but just so we understand why we're talking about this number. And the first year that I made more than 250K was in 2022, and I made about 365K. Now that sounds great on paper, and it was great, right? I'm really proud of myself. At that time, I had been fully booked for, I think, over 4 years. I had crossed $1 million in lifetime revenue from a one-on-one model that I made in about 4 years. I was paying myself multi-6 figures, like we said, from an only one-on-one model. So that is all great, and I'm super proud of that. Sorry, my throat is very dry. And I don't want to make any of that wrong or myself wrong. And I made a really big mistake that is the reason I hit that 365K, and it really cost me, and I had to do quite a lot of work for the next, I would say, 2 years to unwind that. Now, I caught it and I knew what to unwind, but it really did take me, I would say, that long to fully unwind the mistake. And I honestly think it cost me in profitability in 2023. And I think it honestly put more work on my plate than I needed. I'm talking about scaling smarter, not harder, making more money or paying yourself more without working more. And I really just see how this just set me up for, just a lot I had to unwind. So that's really what I want to talk about, because understanding, this was one of those things, I talk about this, I think, a bit. I think sometimes our mistakes, Ryan Holiday, the obstacle is the way. I sometimes think our mistakes are the biggest opportunities and the biggest growth opportunities for us. I know for me personally, I just don't know any business owner who's having great big success that hasn't had failures or mistakes. So again, I'm not mad at this. I think this was one of the best mistakes I could have possibly made, and was the exact learning curve I needed as a CEO so that I can have more peace in my business, and so that I can be scale smarter, not harder, so that I can be more profitable without working more. And I would love for you to not have to make the same mistake as me. This is something I'm coaching clients around and having conversations with clients around all of the time, because I just see how impactful it is. And so essentially, sorry y'all, there's I don't know if there's dust or there's stuff in my throat. Okay. So, and what I would say is in terms of just the other side of that, what it's really helped me to do is not only to become a better coach and support my clients with this, but I really think it's helped me to improve my marketing, my service, my deliverability as a coach. I think it's really helped me to understand what it means to scale smarter, not harder, how to set my business up for long-term success, what to be paying attention to. But I think I was 4 years into business. That's still pretty new in business. I both knew what I was doing and created success, and also you don't know what you don't know until you're kind of in that place. And so I think this year, again, this was just one of the best things I could have gone through. But what essentially happened, and I've definitely shared this with you all before, is I say I accidentally overbooked myself, but I really think I on purpose overbooked myself. And so I think it was towards probably the second half of 2022. My memory might be a little fuzzy, but I think that's about when that happened. I think it was 2021. I think this was actually 2021. Anyway, the year doesn't matter. The point is, this was not COVID year, is the point of that, because COVID COVID was just a very different year in business. That's the reason the year matters and why I'm thinking about that. But anyway, I generally speaking, my fully booked number with one-on-one clients, I only offer one-on-one, is a little over 20 clients. Sometimes I'll have up to 25 clients if I have some clients some of my long-term clients have fewer sessions per month. So that's why that number kind of varies. But generally speaking, I like to have 20 to 23, let's say, ongoing clients, and then that gives me some room for strategy intensives or a VIP day or something like that, which is kind of where that 25 number will also come from. But if that's helpful to hear. And towards the middle of whatever year this was, the year that I made 365K, I ended up, I think at one point, it might have been the beginning of the year, with 29 or 30 one-on-one ongoing clients. So not intensives, but ongoing clients. Now, first and foremost, I think anybody who has one-on-one could just, like, that is just, yes, I mean, you can definitely do it. I mean, in some ways, a one-on-one model, in terms of being on calls, like, my days weren't super stressful, but I offer quite a bit of support between session with clients. I review content. I'm in Basecamp. I'm walking through strategies in Basecamp with clients. I'm walking through people's stress fear. I offer quite a bit of support for that. So that meant my schedule got pretty full. And if you're joining live or on the replay, please say hi, let me know you're here, and let me know if this is landing for you. If you want any specific context questions around this, very happy to be an open book, because I think this is just, again, such, it's just been one of the best learning opportunities for me, and I think it's just such an important conversation. We don't have a lot in our space, so please feel free to use me as a resource, ask the things you want. So I think, and I've definitely shared this part before, but I want to unwind, I really want to unpack and unwind both the mindset behind this, and I think it's a pattern that is really common for high achievers, and why this is a block, as well as why this is detrimental to my business. So I think what's important to say is I didn't burn out. And so I think in some ways it's easy to be like, oh, then why is that a problem? You made 365K that year in business. You love one-on-one. And I genuinely love one-on-one. I love my work. I didn't burn out. You know what I mean? So everything in theory on paper was fine, except for a couple of things and reasons as to why it's not and why this really cost me. First and foremost, I think just what's helpful to understand, I think this is true for so many of you who are high achievers and who are really driven. If we are really, really honest, a lot of our high achieving driven tendencies come from a place at one point in our life of scarcity, of fear, of ego. And I don't mean ego like you're egotistical, but just that part of us that doesn't feel good enough, that doesn't feel worthy, that doesn't feel safe, that feels like we have to hustle for our worth, or hustle for our safety, or hustle for outside approval. I think a lot of us as high achievers are, we've learned we can excel at things, and we've learned the way to, again, get praise, get our safety, get our sense of self-worth, get our sense of, hey, everything's okay, has come from achieving. And I think with anything, right, we've got these double-edged swords, or, I talk a lot about the shadow and light side of anything. There's a lot of light to that, right? If you're a high achiever, if you're driven, it's such a great trait for business. I think there's a lot in that can really fuel us and propel us. And I'm not mad at that part of myself. I love that part of myself. And the shadow part of that is I absolutely have a wiring of, I get my worth from working hard. It's only okay. I mean, this is almost a whole other thing to unpack, but I share this transparently because I just think it's helpful for those of you who have similar but different wiring and can maybe see yourself in this. I definitely also, I think this comes more from the good girl conditioning in our society, and from I got bullied when I was younger, different things. But what I've also really learned and integrated, that I've had to spend a lot of time unwinding and unpacking, is that if I work hard for something, then you don't have to hate me, right? If I essentially hustle, and if I work hard, and if I'm doing a lot, right, then it's okay if I have success, then it's okay if I make good money, then it's okay if I'm shining, then it's okay if I have good things. And again, I think this is just very, 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 very common for those of you who are high achievers, for those of you that things come easily to. I feel like we're not supposed to say those things out loud, but I do think for some of us, I mean, if I'm quite honest, a lot of my business comes quite easily to me, and not in this way to do this. It's just, this is my zone of genius. These are the things, these are my skill sets. I'm good at what I do. And so when that is the case, I think what happens for a lot of us is this creates a perfect storm of, all right, well, we need to work hard and make things harder than they need to be for it to be okay that we have success and we're making money. And then we can also couple that with, if we have a fear of the bottom falling out or not being okay or not being safe, right? We have this belief that the only way to scale, right? The only way to make more money, the only way to be safe and okay is to always work harder and harder, right? Like, it's just this really perfect storm. And so I'm sharing this because when I say I accidentally on purpose got overbooked, like I say, it was an accident and I didn't realize how many clients were going to renew and how many spots I was filling. But if I'm really, really honest with myself, there was a deeper unconscious, subconscious part of me that wanted so badly to be overbooked, because I thought if I was overbooked, right, if I had 29 clients instead of 23, that I would be safe, that I would be good enough, that it would be okay that I was making the money I was making. I think there was also part of me that believed that was the only way, right? Like that really believed that hard work equals the harder I work, the more money I make. That kind of really antiquated, I think it's more like an employee mindset equation. And it was just such a, again, I think this is why it was like the best thing that ever happened to me, quite honestly, but I also want you to learn from my mistakes so you don't go through the same thing. It just really helped me to see and unwind a lot of this narrative, because one of the first things I saw is you can only work so much, and like you will hit an income ceiling. The truth is, if I didn't have a revenue share model, I think this was around when I introduced the revenue sharing model. Again, just the timelines get a little fuzzy on that, but I don't think I had it yet then. But especially with the one-on-one model, right? Like at a certain point, I wasn't burning out then, but I definitely was going to cap it. Like there's only literally so many hours in the day that you can support and serve clients. And, like, so there's that element of the math literally does not math there. You cannot keep working harder and harder and harder and expect to keep making more and more money. And I'm mindful, because I realize we hear 365K, and depending, for some people, you're gonna be like, oh, that's all you made. And then other people are gonna be like, wait, like who cares if that's your income ceiling, kind of a thing. But the truth is, if the mentality is I'm working harder to make more money, that is not scaling smarter, not harder, right? That is scaling harder. That's not what scaling is about. Like that is just putting more time, effort, energy, resources into being able to make more money. Yes, because it's one-on-one, it was quite profitable, but I was really hitting a time ceiling, and I wasn't personally burning out, but it meant that a lot got sacrificed in my business, which we're going to come back around to, and a lot got sacrificed in my personal life. Like I don't feel like I had much of a social life, and I definitely let things like taking care of myself, going to the gym, like things that matter a lot to me and bring me joy, fall to the wayside. So there's that part of it there. But I think we can also see, and I think and I want to go back to like how this is detrimental to your business, but I think the other thing here is it really just reinforced this narrative that I'm not really safe and okay, and I can't make more money unless I work really hard. So while this is this is a false narrative, and this isn't how you scale smarter, because it was like technically for a moment working, it really just reinforced that narrative in my mind that I think is quite harmful for us as CEOs. And I think it really enforces this idea that if you're in scarcity of any kind, or what do I call it sometimes? Fearcity, so fear and scarcity, or feeling not enough, or you want to make more money, right? Like that, it really just reinforced like the way to solve that was essentially to work harder. And if you wonder why I talk so much about doing less better and slowing down to speed up and scaling smarter, not harder, it's because I learned so much this year how false that narrative and that belief is, but how true it can feel in the moment, right? Like my coach always has said to me, she's like, you created those results in spite of basically working hard and sabotaging and working harder, not because of. And that's something I've really, really had to anchor in there. So I'm going to talk about the practical side of this, because I think that'll help land the plane on this a little bit more. But now looking back, I can absolutely see, oh, fascinating. Yes, that was in spite of, not because of. But it really, in the moment, I think that's why it can be so detrimental, why we have to be so mindful. I have so many clients who are brilliant and smart, who are scaling and who are making $250K, $500K, $700K plus per year. And I'd say one of the biggest conversations we're having is around their capacity and around their pattern of wanting to hustle and work harder and harder, because there's so much of the safety they have created for themselves in business around that, and so much of there's such a belief, because they think they have the evidence that when they work super hard or when they hustle harder, right, they get more results. And we have to keep looking at how it's in spite of that, not because of that, because otherwise they will burn out, or what really starts to happen is when you overbook yourself and get past capacity. And I say a lot that I think scaling is really a solution to capacity. And when we're overbooking ourselves, that is not a solution to capacity, right? That is just a recipe for burnout if we're not careful. But what it also does, and this is why it really cost me, and what took me years to unwind, is it really also starts to fundamentally break down everything else in your business that is required for the long term to set yourself up to scale and to be able to sustain that scalability long term. So I'll explain what I mean by that. When we have this mentality that we have to work harder, and that's the only way to make more money, or that's the only way we're going to be safe, and we then, on purpose, not on purpose, right, push past our capacity in business. And capacity is not just how many hours you have in the day. It's what is your actual capacity for the number of clients to hold as a CEO, whatever your business model, one-on-one, group, mastermind, where you still have capacity to then be the CEO who's running your business, especially with a one-on-one model. But this is true if you have any kind of one-to-many service with a mastermind or group program as well. We really have two roles, right? We're both a service provider that's working in our business, and we're the CEO that has to work on our business. And I think it's really easy to forget that, and people, again, I'm coaching clients on this all of the time, so don't make yourself wrong if this is you. This is, I mean, and smart business owners who are, again, at the $250K to $1 million mark in business, like this is the conversation we're constantly having to have, because it's just so easy to find yourself in just all either working on the business or all working in the business or all in service or all in CEO mind. And for most of you, if you have some sort of service-based business, we really have to find what is the requirement of your business to have both, and both are really important. And so when we're past capacity, or when we're in this hustle harder mentality and we're trying to like overbook ourselves, or we are overbooked, or we're just like really looking at how can we stretch our capacity as opposed to how can we do less better, how can we be smarter within that capacity, right? Scaling is not just making more top line revenue. It is having your revenue outpace your expenses, your time, your energy, your costs, right? So you have more that you're able to take home essentially. And so for us to be able to do this, we really have to look at balancing both. That year that I had 29 clients, I really, like, my top and first and foremost priority is always going to be my clients and their investment in my business. I mean, outside of obviously supporting my team and talking to them. And so I didn't drop the ball there, right? I think if you had asked any of my clients at that time, they probably would have had no idea that I had that many clients, and they would have told you I gave them, delivered above and beyond. I was fully present on sessions. I was fully present between sessions, right? That wasn't going to be where I was going to drop the ball. However, I've seen this through other clients, and I've seen this through people I've hired that I've had to, that I've had challenges with and had to let go in the past. I've seen other businesses where when they're past capacity, the first thing that goes is deliverability of your offer. And I think we sometimes forget that business is not just about making a sale. I know everybody knows this, but I think in our online space, especially if you're in a place where you're like, I need to book clients, and I just need to get fully booked, and like, yeah, this is nice to hear, Kim, but like, all I care about is like making that first amount of money. Our brains really get wired to think like all that matters is the marketing and the sales. And I think what we forget is how important it is to have a really great offer and to deliver really well on that, and how important that customer service, but also the deliverability and service within your offer is for not only keeping a sale or keeping a client, but also for the long term of your business. Oftentimes what I see happen, and I've supported clients who've hired me after this has happened, is especially if you're overbooked or you're past capacity, whether again that's in a one-on-one or a group program, you usually won't notice it right away in terms of if you're dropping the ball on service and deliverability, or like details are falling through the cracks, or you're forgetting to do things. It isn't always going to impact you in the immediate, which is where this can get so sticky. But what I've seen happen for other people is it starts to compound, where it's like less and less clients renew. People want to leave their contract. People want to bail on what they're doing, right? And over the long term, this will really start to sever that trust with your client base and limit those renewals, which is such an important part of reoccurring revenue, if you have your business set up that way. But what this will also start to do is start to affect things like word of mouth marketing and your testimonials, and a lot of things that go into your marketing based on your brand, right? Your reputation, that's all based on deliverability. And I think we just forget how important having a solid offer and that deliverability really and truly is, because we're just so focused on making the sale and making the money, not what it means to keep the sale and to make that money, to earn that money. And I don't know that that's necessarily anyone in this group, but I think as an online space as a whole, that's something we forget about. And so, Alyssa, so I always love hearing your take around this. Thank you, Alyssa. So nice to see you as well. And feel free to ask any questions if you have any around that. So again, for me, because I know this and because my clients and their investment is my top priority, that's not where this impacted me. But I do think, just as a cautionary tale, and like, this isn't the sexiest live stream, but I have just seen how much this can really create problems in a business long term. I just want to like really allow that cautionary tale for those of you who are like, I just want to like get as many sales as possible and just make as much money as possible, to really just slow down and to pause and think, what is your capacity for being able to show up and deliver a great service and offer, and how can you honor that, even if that means it's temporarily going to be at the expense of your revenue, or it means it's going to take you a little longer to scale. I promise you, with every fiber of me, and like, just, I've been in March, I'll have been in business for 9 years. I have made 1.6 million in the past 6 years from one-on-one alone. I've helped many clients make far more money than me and scale to 1 million and even 2 million plus in business. I promise you, long term, this will allow you to scale smarter, not harder, but to be able to scale in a way that is more sustainable and that has more longevity and that allows you to pay yourself more. The place this really affected me and where this really cost me and what this took me, I really think this took me a year, maybe even 2, to unwind, is in my marketing. And I will explain by this. So I think it's easy to look at my business. I've shown up and posted content. Gosh, I think we've had something go out probably every day for the last almost 9 years. I've been live every week. I had a podcast. We took almost 200 episodes. I had another podcast before that. I do master classes consistently. I mean, I'm a content marketing machine. I have a funnel that works. I've stayed fully booked, right? Like, so I think it's easy to see that and be like, Kim, did your marketing really suffer? And I will say, again, that was all in spite of, not because of, what happened that year that I had 29, 30 clients and made $365K from basically being past capacity, not because I had a revenue share model. I mean, now when I make great money, it's because I have fewer clients in revenue share, but this was definitely from a overbooking myself place. But this really, really impacted my marketing, and it really ended up putting so much more work on my plate. And I'll explain what I mean by this. First and foremost, what I would say is I didn't notice that this affected my marketing at first, because my focus, and I probably share this in different live streams, but it just felt, we're going to have this conversation again because it's important. I also know we have to hear things in so many different ways and so many different places. But what I would say is I really didn't notice this impact probably for 6 months or a year afterwards, because I was overbooked. And so really my concern was serving clients. And so I was busy serving clients, and I was continuing to book clients or keep slots full. So I didn't really see, really my focus was more, okay, if anything, how do I not bring in more clients? And how do I, as clients are renewed, because a lot of my clients renew and work with me long term, how do I not bring in more? And how do I start to bring my roster actually back down to kind of like a healthy place, so to say? So my focus really was on that and not bringing in more clients, which obviously changes your marketing focus as well. But what this also meant is all of my attention and energy really was going to clients, which meant I didn't really have a lot of bandwidth left for things like thinking about my thought leadership, thinking about what I really wanted to share with my audience, thinking about what was important for me to talk about. I don't think my content was necessarily bad by any means. I think I'm good at creating content. I don't mean it, I'm not giving myself a hard time, but I just want to help illustrate here what happens when we get to focus on being in our business at the expense of working on our business. I think what this really meant is, the focus for my business. I mean, most businesses, honestly, their sales focus should not be how do I have fewer clients. It's not exactly the greatest marketing or sales goal focus, but that had to be mine, right? So that I could get out from under this essentially and get the business back to a place that was like healthy, sustainable. Hopefully that makes sense. And what I think is important for every business, I harp on my clients and lovingly give them a hard time. I think it is very easy to get to a certain place in business and to rest on your laurels, or to get so focused on deliverability, or to get so like stuck in a rut that you're not paying attention to what the future of your business needs, that you're not paying attention to marketing. You should always, I mean, I'll never say shit, I'll never tell you what to do, but I think for a business to be sustainable, we should always be marketing. We should always be thinking not about now, but what is happening 90 days down the road, 6 months down the road, a year down the road. A lot of what I'm doing in my business isn't for what do I need today and tomorrow. It's what does my business need 6 months from now. And we really genuinely always want to be looking at growth, right? Otherwise, if we're not growing, we're kind of stagnating. And so what this meant is quite a few things. One, again, I'm not making myself wrong. I don't think my content was bad by any means, but I don't think that it was, the stuff I'm most proud of. I think I repurposed quite a bit of content, which is fine. I think repurposing is a great tool, but I don't think repurposing is a great tool for growth or for putting out thought leadership. It's a great tool for saving time when you're busy. And there are seasons for that, right? But when you have a season of that lasts over a year, right, you're not having a lot of new stuff go out. That can really start to catch up with you. I think what this also starts to mean are things like my email list growth, my audience growth, letting people know, I've grown and evolved as a business owner, and what my thought leadership is around that. I was regurgitating a lot or doing a lot of, again, I don't think my content was like bad, but I just, in terms of knowing what I wanted to share, I don't think there was just as much thought and intentionality put into my marketing. And at the same time, we saw, say probably the last year and a half, we also saw big shifts happen with marketing in our online space. And so what this meant is that I did start to catch that about a year ago, but when I started to catch these shifts in the market, I was sort of already like behind the eight ball. I'm glad that I'm a business owner who's paying attention to that, but I was sort of in this place where I'm like, oh, I'm just starting to get myself to a place where I'm even with my client base, and now I'm seeing, there is a need for a pivot in my marketing, and I think just I don't know, I think in some ways I like stayed ahead of the curve, so to say, because I was aware of it. But I think that I wouldn't have even had to stay ahead of the curve, so to say, if I hadn't been sort of like so disconnected from my messaging and marketing. And so I would say all of last year, we spent a lot of time kind of pivoting with the industry, but also pivoting with now getting back to sort of like, okay, so now we're shifting from now how do we get back to sustaining and keeping keeping spots full in a way that feels really, I guess I would say, healthy, sustainable, and making sure that we're doing this in a way that is keeping the future of the business in mind. And so, again, I think this is just something people don't talk about with like fast growth, big results, is that there's just always a trade-off. And it doesn't have to be bad, right? This isn't like, oh my gosh, this mistake. I still paid myself. I still made multi-six figures the last couple of years. I still paid myself multi-six figures, right? I still was fine in business, but I just really see what this cost me in terms of, really my thought leadership and my body of work, but also in terms of just future-proofing my business. And I would say, I don't know if because I think our profit margins went up last year, but I do think it really did cut at least that year that we were overbooked, making $365K. I would say it definitely affected my profit margins that year, because this is just the case. If you're a business that scales really quickly, again, that's not wrong or bad, but if you scale and grow really quickly, the trade-off of that usually is you don't have the infrastructure to support what you're scaling. And so then usually the solution to that is you have to throw a lot of money at the problem, as opposed to if you're scaling a little slower and more sustainably. One isn't better than the other. I think, there's arguments to be made for both, and I don't want to make either one wrong, but I do want us to see how there's always that trade-off associated. And so the trade-off here, and here, I didn't really scale. I just put myself past capacity, and I want us to see how that is actually scaling is a solution to capacity, and how it's something we just really want to be mindful of, especially if we're those high achievers, or if we have that wiring of like nothing's ever enough, or I'm not safe in business, or like I need to hustle for my worth, or I need to work hard to make more. we want to be mindful of that, because again, the trade-off there and where that affected my profitability in 2022 is I did throw money at, I mean, it affected my marketing. I think it affected, thinking about my messaging, my thought leadership, and meant I was sort of kind of behind the eight ball of that. But it, like I didn't get on Reels until last year. One of the reasons I didn't is I frankly didn't have the time or bandwidth before that, because I was focused on clients. Not that you have to do Reels to grow in your business, but that is a big shift in terms of our marketing, where we've been focusing our attention. That wasn't even a luxury I could think about, because that wasn't something, again, we had the time or bandwidth for. But I would say, just in terms of profitability, I still paid myself multi-six figures. It's not bad, but we definitely were over leverage and overspending on certain things in terms of team support, because I just had to, right? It was either that or I wasn't going to support the number of clients we had. And so I think we just need to understand that, because otherwise in our space, what happens is, again, we're just chasing the big numbers. We're just chasing more and more clients. We're just chasing make more revenue at any expense, not understanding what that means. Or you hear someone like me talk about making a certain amount of money, and I'm not making anyone wrong who talks about making money. Not everybody has a business model where they can also talk about these things. It's a lot easier for me because I have a one-on-one model. I have a couple of spots open up at any time, right? I'm not having a big launch. It's just a lot easier for me to have these conversations without harming my business, so to say. But I think it's easy to hear someone talk about having 29 one-on-one clients or 30 one-on-one clients, or to hear someone talk about their really big group program or their really big launch, or the big number that they made on the back end of it, and to miss what goes into that, or what that costs them. And what that costs them can be what that costs them in terms of team expense, ad expense, which isn't bad or good, but sometimes we don't know that, right? And so we just hear this top line number without understanding the context of what the cost that is associated with that number, or we don't understand what that costs them in terms of time and energy. So we either don't have realistic expectations if we want to create the same result, or we don't understand that if we do, there's just always a trade-off. If we hold this large program, have this big launch, and it's taking all this time and energy, what does that mean in terms of other things in your business that still need you as the CEO to show up for them? And so, I think this is a dance this is why I have a job. This is why my clients who are scaling and who have scaled to $500,000 to $1 million continue to work with me. It's not because they don't understand business, but a lot of it is because we're trying to work through and figure out, what is capacity, what actually makes sense to focus time and energy, where do we need to be in the business, where do we want to be working on the business, where do we need to be in service, where do we need to refine thought leadership, where do we need to update marketing, what's working well that we want to double down on, what is a big expense that is actually cutting into profit margin that we want to stop on, right? These are all just moving pieces in business we're constantly looking at. And so I don't want anyone to think like there's this like perfect answer to this, but I do think these are things that I really want to invite you to be thinking about and to be mindful of, especially since we're at the beginning of the year. If you're looking this year, whether it's to make your first six figures, to make your next six figures, to scale to multi-six, to $1 million, I really want to invite you to be thinking about not just how do I hit that number, but what is actually required of me to hit that number in a way that is sustainable and in a way that allows me to also pay myself the same or more. Because I don't know about you, but I don't care about what number I can put on the internet. I care so much more about what number I put in my bank account and pay myself. Like, that's the number that actually matters. And when I look back at that year where I was overbooked, and when I look back at last year where I actually had fewer clients and I took Fridays off and I worked far fewer hours, I paid myself I probably paid myself more. I don't know the exact numbers, but I paid myself the same or more, even though I had far fewer clients on my roster and was working less. I also, I think, moved our marketing forward and really stepped our marketing up and grew quite a bit in terms of the thought leadership we were sharing and the messaging, but just also we doubled my email list, just different things to future-proof my business far more and at a lesser expense, both in time and in team ads, just overall, we were more profitable. We increased our profitability last year. And part of the reason for that is everything we're talking about here, right? Because I reallocated my time and wasn't pouring all of it into service and deliverability, which is absolutely important. And because I wasn't over committed or overbooked, right? I had the time and bandwidth to actually take a look and see what are to look at my data and to see like what's driving things forward. How can we be really smart as opposed to just work really hard? And so again, for all of my people who think hard work equals more money, as someone who is wired for that, and like I love to work and I love my business, but I think there's a really big difference between loving your work and loving your business, and understanding certain things in business might feel hard or temporarily be challenging, as opposed to the mentality and mindset of hard work equals more money. The harder I work, the more money I make. The only way I can make more money is to work harder. Hard work is what makes it okay that I'm successful, makes it okay that I make money. Hard work is what makes it palatable to others. Hard work is what makes it acceptable, okay, safe. I can hustle for my worth, right? That makes me worthy. That's the part I really want to invite all of us, as we're, if you're similarly minded as many of my clients, just to start to dismantle, just to start to see how, what my coach always says to me, right? It is in spite of that mindset that you've created the success you have up to now, and you will hit a ceiling. You can only hustle for your worth, for your money, for your results to a certain point. You will hit a ceiling. If you want to scale past that ceiling, it really is about scaling smarter, not harder. It really is about looking at your capacity and understanding what that is. And I always think about capacity. Capacity is not how do we hit to the edge of our capacity. Probably used this example before. When I think about my water glass here, I can technically fill this glass of water to here, but what happens if I fill this glass of water up to here? If I make one wrong move, the water is sloshing everywhere, right? Like, I also don't want it to be like down here because I don't have enough water to drink, but really what probably makes sense for my full capacity is to fill my glass up to about here and to still leave some room to breathe there. And so I think that's just maybe a visual for, and sorry, my glass probably looks so gross. I put electrolytes. I'm obsessed with electrolytes. So I've got like electrolyte stop on the glass. I promise I clean my glasses, y'all. But highly recommend some electrolytes in your water. Makes it taste better too, but I swear it's doing good things for the skin and for my workouts. Anyway, I digress. But I would really invite you to think about capacity in that way and to really see scaling as solving for a capacity problem, and to understand that yes, it might soothe your nervous system and your brain momentarily to fill your cup all the way to the top if you're in scarcity, or all the things we talked about. But I really, really want to invite you to look at what is your 80% capacity. That really is the goal we're looking for. And for some of you, it might be less, right? You might see that, oh, actually, I could be at 50% capacity, have more than enough. And actually, that gives me then capacity to be more in the CEO role with my business model, and actually allows me to make exponentially scale, exponentially more. So I really want to invite y'all to think about that. I hope this is helpful to hear. If you're listening to the replay and you have questions for me, please let me know. Happy to share more examples or to talk through that more. And then with that, what I just want us to remember, and I think just like the pieces that really land for me, is our deliverability. Having a great offer and deliverability is like the most important thing in our business. But also that needs to be coupled with working on the business and really remembering to think about things like always marketing, always marketing, always selling, and really that thought leadership to drive and move our business forward. When we marry those together, that's what will allow you to blow up and to scale. All right. I love you all. I hope this was beneficial. If you want support with this, if you're ready to scale smarter, not harder, if you want to pay yourself more in 2025, if you want to pay yourself 6 figures or more and do so in a way that feels peaceful and without all of the drama, I've got one one-on-one spot opening up in February, and I think we're opening up one strategy intensive as well. I will drop a link for a free coaching consultation. I do require a consultation because fit is quite important for me. I am very mindful of my capacity now, and it's really important to me that I'm working with clients who are a great fit, that I know that I can support and really help to reach the goals that you want. So I promise if you're not the right fit, I will lovingly let you know and point you in the right direction. And then a reminder, please join me next week. We'll have a live stream where we're talking more about profitability or planning for profitability, some of the things to look at. And I will be sharing that worksheet with you that I give to my clients, that I use myself, and set you up for having a more profitable year this year. All right, I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. I will see you next week. Bye.